The following program is presented by the Metropolitan Library Service Agency.
Hello, welcome to All About Kids, a program focusing on the interests of children and young people and some of the issues affecting them. Today we'll be talking about Staying Power, a volunteer organization whose mission is to link retirees with kindergarten through 12th grade students, their parents, and their schools. Staying Power volunteers believe that each child can succeed in school. Using their unique perspectives as retirees, their life experiences, they help students and families obtain the support they need to succeed in school. Staying Power volunteers Ruth Barela and Milt Goldstein will be talking with Arthur Himmelman.
Well, here we are talking about Staying Power, an exciting project that we've all been involved in for a couple years now. I'm going to give a little bit of background for the viewing audience to bring them up to date in terms of how we started it, and then we can get into a conversation, talk a little bit about your involvement and what you hope to accomplish with Staying Power over the next year. Staying Power is a project of the Minnesota Retiree Volunteer Center, and it was started in 1990, the fall of 1990, as part of a program that Minnesota Retiree Volunteer Center calls Retirees in Leadership. The actual program, Retirees in Leadership, started in 1989 with two classes that began in 1989. This third class that began Staying Power was a focused effort to bring retirees into an effort to help children and families that are trying to increase school success. And the Staying Power effort really has been the most exciting effort so far related to the Retirees in Leadership program, and Minnesota Retiree Volunteer Center has been very excited about it. Today we're going to talk a little bit about how you have been involved over the past year and some of the things you're doing currently. And maybe we can begin, Ruth, I can ask you a basic question, and Milt also. What motivated you to get involved in Staying Power in the first place, which originally was the Retirees in Leadership program?
Well, I think a phone call from my friend is the thing that got me going. And when she mentioned that it was going to be a program geared to helping children succeed in school, I became very interested. I'm a retired school teacher, and with a love for children and the knowledge that there are children that need a lot of help today, and that, well, I'm kind of like an old fire horse. When the gong sounds, you're ready to go. So I went kind of skeptical about whether I wanted to be involved, but after the first meeting I thought, yeah, this is something I can do and make a difference. At least I hope to.
When you became involved initially, were you concerned that it might take too much time, or what were some of your concerns about being involved initially before you came to the first meeting?
Well, before I came, I think I had a lot of other projects in mind.
You were very busy, so where you'd fit this in.
And I didn't know whether I wanted to devote as much time to this, but I have found it more than rewarding to be involved in this. So all my other projects are sort of on the back shelf.
Well, they say when you ask a busy person to do something, you're probably going to get more done. So, and I know you've been very, very active. Milt, how about you? What motivated you to get involved in Staying Power?
Well, I received a letter from you, Mr. Himmelman. No, when I retired, I was looking around for something to do, and at first I became involved in the juvenile court system as a guardian ad litem, and I was working with children who come from dysfunctional homes, the children have problems and so on. And the more I got involved in it, the more interested I became, the more I studied, the more I learned and so on. And then I did receive a letter from Arthur one day telling me that they are starting this program, and that if I'm interested, would I want to join. And I was interested, and I did go down to our meeting, at the Humphrey, and I just found it fascinating. And there was so much to learn and so much to do, and the more I got involved in it, the more interested I became in it. Where now it's almost become a second career with me, is doing something with children, and I find it very rewarding. I really appreciate being invited.
Well, you certainly have been a wonderful member of the Staying Power group. What we've been talking about a little bit is that the course, the Retirees in Leadership course, was held at the Humphrey Institute. I was there as a senior fellow, and part of my involvement with Staying Power was to help with the course and some of the training, along with Jane Crouch with the Minnesota Retiree Volunteer Center. And the United Ways of Minneapolis and St. Paul are also sponsors in this effort, along with the Humphrey Institute. So you were attracted to the program primarily perhaps because it was focusing on children and families and trying to help them in school. You both had prior involvement, so you had some experience. Could you tell us a little bit about the initial, the course or the program that prepared you to go out and start organizing Staying Power, what you found helpful or valuable in that process?
Well, we had a lot of pertinent material to read. We had some very interesting guests come and speak to our class, people who were involved in this field, people who had knowledge of situations and attitudes, things that we perhaps only heard of. It was good to hear from people who were really involved. I think the site visits were very... We went to Head Start,
Guadalupe Center.
the Guadalupe Center,
North High.
North High. It was really a college course, a college education in the problems, which gave us a good background in making our decision on how to approach with some sort of solution.
The activities that we're talking about now were in preparation for actually launching this collaborative effort, and Staying Power is a collaborative effort with retirees linking with a lot of community agencies and schools. So what we're talking about now is how we prepared to go out into the community and ask others to be involved. And the site visits we went on were, I found them very, very interesting. And tell us a little bit about the reaction of the community agencies when you first went out and told them that you had decided to try to help families and children at risk and you wanted to work on these kinds of issues. Tell us a little bit about the reaction of some of the agencies in the community.
Well, the way it worked, one day in class we listed a number of agencies, and the individuals who were interested picked an agency or two or three and made appointments to go see these people. Myself, I went with Dottie Hansen. We went to see Dr. Ferrari from the Minneapolis school system, and we all were apprehensive. We didn't know just what kind of reaction we were going to get. This another group of do-gooders, retirees, people looking for something to do, and so on. And we were very cautious of what we were doing. And the only thing I could tell you is about my own experience when we went to see Dr. Ferrari. He gave us a great greeting. He told us there's something that has to be done. He said, anything you want to do, call my office. We will cooperate with you. And we were absolutely flabbergasted. And we both walked out feeling really good. And then we really realized, I think, more than ever, that this is something that is important, something has to be done, something we should get involved with, and it wasn't just another do-gooder job. And after that meeting, I really became more enthusiastic, and I think so did Dottie Hansen, who was with me that day. And this really led to other things, and it's been very, very rewarding.
This was an important kind of turning point, I think, in the Staying Power effort, because the site visits were the kind of test to see if people would accept some of the ideas you had talked about when we had talked about them in our groups and had visitors come in and talk with us about the issues. Did you also find quite a positive response in making some of the visits?
Well, most of my choices involve visiting places that were teaching or involved in some way with child care. And I would say the welcome was quite warm, and the prevailing words were Oh, yes. We could use you. I could see how we could work retirees into our program and how you could help. So I think we realized that there was a lot that we could do out there.
Yes.
And people were anxious to have more hands, more ideas.
One of the things that I found so exciting about it was that when we talked about trying to do this work and having retirees be involved in a leadership role, we were also suggesting to the community agencies that you were going to be full partners with them, that you weren't just going to be put in some slot that somebody already had available for a volunteer, but you wanted to really help shape the effort, design it, create it, the whole thing. And you were welcomed even more, I guess, on that basis, because they realized you were going to be very actively involved. And that's one of the great features, I think, of Staying Power, is that retirees, those of you who have been involved, have really shaped this from the beginning, even giving it its name, which Ruth really came up with the name Staying Power. And could you tell us a little bit about how you came up with the name Staying Power for the effort?
I think one of the agencies that we really liked the best, or the effects of it the best, was Head Start. And the part of the program that really impressed us was the parental involvement on it. And so we decided sort of that we wanted to continue the Head Start program by working with parents and keeping the parents involved. In searching for a name, it occurred to me that a Head Start is a good start, but you need staying power to get to the end of the race. And that was my suggestion for a name, Staying Power.
I think one of the reasons for the success of our program up to this point, and we have a long ways to go, is that the involvement of the parents with the children in school is so essential. And since we've been doing this type of work, I keep on finding articles everywhere from the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, local publications, and so on, saying almost without exception, whenever parents are involved with school children, the success rate is that much greater. And I don't know if we stumbled upon this or this was your intent, Arthur, but we went into an area that really needs a lot of support, a lot of help, and if we can accomplish what we're trying to do in this one school where we start our pilot program, I think it'll be absolutely tremendous. And maybe you want to tell us about our pilot program.
We're going to get into some details of Staying Power in just a minute. I just wanted to emphasize again that the basic purpose of Staying Power is to encourage retirees to become involved with parents and children in the schools to increase the school success of children from kindergarten through 12th grade. As Ruth was just saying, to take the idea of Head Start, which I think most people are familiar with, the helping students prepare to enter school, and following through all the way through K-12. And what Milt just suggests is we talk a little bit about a specific effort that Staying Power is involved in at one of the Minneapolis schools, the Wilder School. And Ruth and Dottie Hansen have been the sort of leaders of that effort out at Wilder School, doing some very interesting things. Let's talk a little bit about Wilder School. I should mention also that Staying Power has 4 goals. The first is education and community information about the issue. Second goal also relates to the recruitment of more retirees. We'll talk a little bit about that before we finish. The third goal is to demonstrate in the community setting, either at a school site or a community agency site, exactly how this might happen with parents and students and teachers and how retirees can help. And then I'll turn to Milt in just a moment after Ruth talks a little bit about Wilder and talk about our hope to be also involved in policy change and advocacy. And Milt has been at the legislature this year, involved somewhat there. So Staying Power has these very ambitious and important goals, and I guess we're trying to take a little bit at a time. So let's turn to and ask Ruth if you could tell us a little bit about the Wilder School effort and what's going on there and what you hope to accomplish with it.
Well, one of our goals is to keep the parents involved in this program. We want to ask them the ways that their needs so that we can help them. We've had 3 meetings this year in which we've invited parents, and we've learned some important things from them. Basically, our first meeting, they said they wanted more communication. So that's been our thrust this year. We have been writing a newsletter that we've put out every other Thursday. And in this newsletter, we have tried to explain the curriculum, explain what is being done and why it's being done in the classroom. And we have also included hints for the parents for things that they can do at home to reinforce the curriculum. We've been involved in some of the Read to Me days and helping children. I think the parents have been very supportive when we've called them on the phone and talked to them. They all have said that the newsletter has become an important thing in their home, that they use it. They or their older children play some of the games or do some of the things that we suggest in the newsletter. And I think we've made a good base of reaching out to parents, and I think we've been helpful. Mm-hmm. And I think that many parents today went to school perhaps before so many new things were involved in the curriculum. And they're maybe a little bit put off by not understanding what it is and why it is. So I think that's our fundamental thing, is to make the parents aware of what's happening at school, and in such a way making them feel comfortable to come in and work in the school or ask questions of the teacher, or just plain feel comfortable because they understand what their children are doing.
It probably seems to some of our viewers that it'd be hard to imagine why it would be hard to communicate about maybe homework that comes from a kindergarten classroom or something. But we had a meeting, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about that. Even homework assigned at the kindergarten level can be somewhat hard to understand, and you need to be able to get involved and ask the teacher what really is being asked for, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well, writing directions for anything is a very tricky proposition. And although the homework assignments went home with directions on them, some of the parents really were not comfortable in exactly what it meant, exactly what the purpose of the paper was, and so that we became aware that we needed to explain more to parents so that when these papers came home that maybe had multiple directions on them, that the parents and the children would be clear as to how to follow the format.
Some of the parents just aren't literate in English. You have Hmongs, you have other immigrants, and they just are not literate in English, and this is one of the problems we found out exists, that we have to know who the population is out there and how we can approach them and bring them in. And this is one of the major problems.
I should say, though, that at that meeting, we several of us looked at the homework assignment, and it wasn't so clear, and we all kind of puzzled with it. And what struck some of us was that if a child isn't successful at kindergarten level and the parent feels that the parent can't help very much, even at that level, it sets a pattern perhaps that could continue all the way through school, where the child is falling behind, the parent doesn't feel they can help very much, maybe some cases maybe they don't speak the language very well, so they're embarrassed to ask a question or whatever. And what's been exciting, I think, about the work you've been doing there is that they would feel confident enough maybe to ask you or ask you to help out and make it possible for them to understand what's necessary. Could you tell us a little bit about how you've been welcomed at the Wilder School, and how the principal and some of the staff people have reacted to you and other retirees being in the building?
Well, we've been working primarily with one kindergarten teacher, Gail Staley, and she's been more than welcoming to us. We feel free to go into her classroom at any time. We ask to take a few minutes of the children's time before we send home the newsletter. And it seems that no matter what she's doing, she's willing to put things on hold and have the children gather up front for us to talk to them. The principal has been very supportive.
And the principal is?
Mr. Azel Smith.
Azel Smith, okay.
And
They've also given us a room
That's right.
and a
We've-
Staying power
telephone.
room and telephone.
And we had a
And
telephone
telephone
so that we
and,
could.
Can you order a pizza if you want? Or?
Well, I think so, but mostly we hope to use it to call parents and tell them good news about their children.
And that's very important. Tell us a little bit more about why you think it's valuable to call parents and speak to them about what's going on with their children. Don't they get called very often from the school with good news, or?
Well, I think teachers try to make an effort to do that, but I think what really demands their attention is when the child needs help in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of the limited time they have to reach parents is probably more directed to problem solving. But parents need to hear that their children are successful in ways at school, and even that they're improving in certain ways. And I do think that some good news would certainly improve their interest in being involved in their child's school and their child's education. So I think that's very positive news is best.
Before we turn to some of the legislative and advocacy work, I want to just ask a couple more questions about Wilder, or maybe to highlight something. You have come up, you and Dottie Hanson, with a little symbol called the bulldog that you provide for children, and they get kind of excited about this. It's a sign that they've done something, and that you've also had in your newsletters information about what children have done, and they get their name put in the paper and little stories about them. Tell us how people have reacted to that.
Well, we have made a point to interview every child in the kindergarten room, morning and afternoon classes both. We've asked them to dictate stories to us, and we've printed those in the newsletter. And of course, parents are excited when their child's name appears there. We have also had a family feedback form, and we have tried to construct a question that would help children and parents have a little dialogue. And we've asked them questions like, what costume would you like to wear for Halloween next year? Well, you know, if a child said that they wanted to be Cinderella or something, the parent might, talk to them about why that was their choice. And if the mother or the father suggested that they wanted to be a queen or a court jester, it might lead to some conversations between parents. So on every paper we've had this little family feedback form, and we also took a little box and covered it with contact and made pictures on it, and we have a little mailbox. And when the children bring back their family feedback, they drop it in the mailbox, and we collect those and give them a little bulldog award. The bulldog is the symbol of the school, the mascot of the school. And they get excited about it, and they love doing it. And we also print in the next newsletter the answers that we've gotten so that the parents and the children can share from the whole kindergarten.
So they really have fun learning and talking about things, and that's a very big aspect of what motivates children to succeed in school. And as Milt mentioned earlier, that we really do have, I guess the research has shown rather clearly that this parental support and involvement is probably the key factor in whether children will succeed in school. So this kind of gets parents involved very early and makes it fun and exciting, and it's great. Let's turn a little bit, we have just a few minutes left, but let's turn a little bit to one of the other goals of Staying Power, which is to try to be helpful in legislative change or advocacy. And Milt, you've been at the legislature this year, and you've learned a little bit about the Children's Coalition. And tell us a little bit about that and how you see in the future, perhaps, retirees that might join Staying Power being helpful at the legislative level.
Well, what I try to do is I try to keep track of the different legislation going through the state legislature pertaining to children's issues. And in this last session, although it's supposed to be a short session and so on, there were numerous bills, amendments, and so on pertaining to children. And there is this Children's Coalition that meets every Thursday afternoon, and there's about 25 or 30 people there who represent different groups, lobbyists, and so on. and they review all the legislation that's going through. Not all of it, but they review some. And our job is to follow it, to lobby for it, to keep informed and so on. And what I do is I try to come back to our group when we have our monthly meetings at the Humphrey, report what I've seen and learned and heard at the legislature, try to keep them informed, try to keep them involved. Perhaps we need some phone calls, perhaps we need some letters, perhaps we just need some information. And basically that's what I try to do, is keep the group informed of what's going on at the legislature, so that we become more aware of the current events.
And one of the reasons this is so important is that, as you know, often people who are retired may be perceived as interested in things that address seniors' issues or retirement, etc. And I know from some of the initial meetings we had with the Children's Defense Fund, Luann Nyberg, and some of the legislators, they were very, very excited about retirees coming to the legislature to show that there is what they call this intergenerational support.
That's exactly.
And it's very exciting because they normally don't see people who have maybe not a direct interest per se saying, we care about children in our communities and schools and we want to be involved. So
seniors are perceived as just looking out for their own affairs and so on, and this is one area where we can show this is not really so. And if anybody is interested, we'll be glad to invite you into our group.
now that probably is a good note to sort of wind down a little bit today, because while there are some very exceptional people involved in staying power, yourselves included, it's a rather small, it's kind of like the Magnificent Seven as the core group, and we hope to expand the efforts. We're going to be talking about expanding at Wilder and St. Paul. We've talked to Frost Lake School about something there and some community sites. So any of you who are interested in this, I hope you also realize that this can be fun, it's exciting, it's worthwhile. And if you'd like to join, you can call Jane Crouch at the Minnesota Retiree Volunteer Center, and the number is 341-2689.
Said as good as Jerry Brown.
341-2689. You're supposed to say it twice.
Oh, okay.
And Jane would be glad to help you become involved, and I'm sure all the retirees that are involved would be very excited to find more members joining Staying Power, more retirees being involved. And it's just been a very, very inspirational, literally, process to be involved in. And thank you very, very much for joining us this morning and talking about your work. And congratulations for a job well done.
It's been a pleasure.
We enjoyed it.
Thank you.
These retirees are obviously making a difference. They are helping children succeed in school. They're also making a difference for families. Thank you, Ruth Barela, Milt Goldstein, and Arthur Himmelman. And thanks to all of you for joining us on All About Kids. Please tune in again.
This has been a presentation of Hennepin County Library in conjunction with the Twin Cities Metropolitan Library Service Agency. We thank you for watching, and we hope you visit your public library often.